Reverse dieting or going all in? What do I think? What does Abbey Sharp think? Let's find out. Hey, Samantha Souza, certified nutrition coach here. Today we're going to be talking about reverse dieting versus all in, according to Abbey Sharp. In my Diet Destroyer program, I teach clients all about reverse dieting. It's helped hundreds of people. I don't understand really how people maintain their weight without doing it. Again, this is my personal preference. I have a whole video all about Stephanie Buttermore's all-in journey, as well as a video talking about my thoughts a year in, and of course they changed over time. At first I was really against what she was doing, didn't necessarily agree with it. A year later, my thoughts changed, so if you're interested in that, go ahead and check out that video. I'll have it in the cards above. There has been a lot of excitement and curiosity over this topic. Abbey Sharp has talked a lot about Stephanie Buttermore's journey also. I believe she's a registered dietitian, but I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. I'll put it here, whatever she is. She tends to come from a different mindset than I do. And I don't know if it's because, and again, I don't know her personal journey, maybe she has been thinner or relatively thin her whole life, so maybe she just has a different perspective on things. I was a much heavier person. I've maintained my weight using a lot of the principles that I teach here on my YouTube channel for over 10 years. So I'm coming from that perspective. I'm not going to pretend to know anything about Abbey Sharp's history other than I subscribe to her channel, have for about a year or so, and that's really what I'm going off of. So today I wanted to watch her How to Fix a Diabetic Metabolism Reverse Dieting versus All-In video, because it kind of goes in line with I teach about reverse dieting, these Stephanie Buttermore all-in videos on my channel analyzing it and talking about it and commentating on it have been really popular with you guys. So I thought this would be a good one to sort of kind of bridge that gap and see if Abbey and I are really in line. Not at all. We tend to not really agree on approach. Not that I think that she's wrong, just different approaches, different strokes, different folks. So let's take a look, and you can watch my reactions as I watch this video.
This is something that is incredibly common, since for a lot of people, weight loss diets are just not sustainable in the long term and often result in weight regain, otherwise known as weight cycling. But why is weight regained after it's lost? And why do some people regain even more weight than what they lost in the first place?
This is interesting. I've never heard anybody call it weight cycling. I've only ever heard of the term yo-yo dieting. I have a whole free training about how to end the cycle of yo-yo dieting for good. If that's something that interests you, I will have the link down below. It is completely free, absolutely helpful information that you can implement today. I've had such amazing feedback from it, from people who aren't even clients who have implemented these lessons, and a lot of it has to do with reverse dieting. So check that out down below. But I've never heard it called the weight cycling, so that's interesting to me already.
Okay, so first things first, what is metabolic damage anyway? While metabolic damage and starvation mode are really commonly used as terms online, I actually prefer to use the term metabolic adaptation to refer to the body's response to long-term caloric restriction or starvation. Our body does not have enough energy, aka calories, available to use. It slows down our metabolism to burn fewer calories throughout the day. This is literally a desperate attempt to preserve energy for the body to use for normal everyday functions like breathing, digestion, walking, standing, etc.
This is absolutely true. If you'll notice, when you are really low in body fat or taking in very few calories, your body actually fidgets less because it cannot spend any energy more than it needs to survive at that point. So if you're the type of person who, when you're eating at liberty and you're not really calorie restricting or you're metabolically sound, you could be somebody who, you know, taps their leg or plays with their fingers or does stuff like this, and you're fidgety. Your body will not have those natural inclinations when you are at a super low calorie amount, or if you're metabolically deregulated. And it's just to preserve that energy. It's really funny how your body automatically does these things without you even realizing it. Take a look next time if you're somebody who's chronically undereating.
A lot of people might believe that it's as simple as energy in minus energy out, but it's actually a lot more nuanced than that. Based on what we know about metabolic adaptation and When we consider the actual number of calories consumed, this information may not be as accurate as you may think, depending on where you look. For instance, calorie information is readily available from food packaging or calorie trackers. However, according to the FDA, the nutrition information on a food label can be off by up to 20% and still be considered compliant. So the calories that you see on a nutrition label or the numbers you're logging into your MyFitnessPal may be very different than what you're actually consuming.
This is, so far, I mean, we're only 3 minutes in of a 26-minute video that I'm watching at 1.25 speed, just so that this video isn't extremely long, but so far we are very simpatico on a lot of the ideologies that she's expressed so far and beliefs. And it's so funny because when it comes to our bodies, it's so weird that there are some things that are just beliefs, especially in the weight loss community, versus, this is just hard, fast science. What she's saying is actually 100% true, and what I preach to my clients as well. Because of the FDA regulations on nutrition labels, if something, for example, is 0.49 grams of carbs, they could label it as 0, which for people on a ketogenic diet, they might have more than one serving, and all of a sudden they're adding up these carbs, but they're thinking it's 0, and therefore they go into the mentality of a free food, which it isn't really. It's really frustrating, actually, the way that the government doesn't really look out for our real health benefits. In England and in Europe, they have to say how many grams of something on the nutrition label it is per 100 grams so that you don't get duped by this. So even if you aren't eating 100 grams, you can actually see the real effect of it if you had more than the suggested serving, and we don't do that in America. It's very frustrating. Also, in terms of nutrition that's absorbed, fiber doesn't get absorbed, sugar alcohols don't get absorbed, some do more than others, some are told to you that they don't get absorbed, like maltitol, when really half of it gets absorbed. It's very frustrating the way that we label things. So it's true that you can't necessarily just go over calories in, calories out based off of what's on a nutrition label.
Energy out is a combination of resting metabolic rate, the thermic effect of food, physical activity, and non-exercise activity thermogenesis.
She's getting into a lot of establishing science, which I think is helpful. If you want to watch that on her video, I'm not going to make you go through all of this, but I do think it's great of her to show and explain a lot of this because it's going to be relevant when she goes into the reverse dieting versus all-in approach and analysis. So I'm going to skip through this part. And if you want to watch it, so far, I'm really endorsing a lot of how she's explaining it. Thank God, because how often am I disagreeing with people on here? I don't want to be that disagreeable girl. For the sake of this video, I'm going to kind of fast forward. So far, Abby and I are very much in line. She talks about Setpoint theory, which I do teach about in my yo-yo dieting and how to end it for good free training that's down below. When I hear people talk about Setpoint theory, I think that there is a little bit of a discrepancy in terms of whether or not this is one pre-genetic number that you are going to be fighting to be at. I don't agree with that. I believe that you can manipulate your set point. It has to be done with very deliberate metabolic manipulation. And again, I teach all of that in my free training below. I don't subscribe to the idea that you cannot change your set point. I do agree with the idea that set points exist, but I think that they are manipulatable with diligent effort. But that's another video for another time.
The Setpoint theory suggests that our bodies have a comfortable weight that is genetically predetermined that it will fight to defend. When we decrease our intake and lower our body weight through dieting, for example, we have compensatory mechanisms in place that reduce the energy output and increase the energy input in an effort to maintain homeostasis. Our weight in this regard is a lot like a thermostat. If the house gets too hot, it's triggered to cool it back up.
Great analogy.
If the house gets cold, it's triggered to heat it back up. To give you an example, if your set point range is 110 to 135 pounds, because the physiological control mechanisms for weight are weaker within this range can be more easily influenced and may fluctuate up or down depending on things like diet and exercise. However, these efforts are more likely to be thwarted if you try to get outside the range.
So we agree that it's adjustable. Her thing is that she thinks that the set point is this giant 20-pound difference. And for me, the set point is a more predetermined number that you can tend to kind of stick at around within a 2 to 3 pound variance. And I think amongst that 20 pounds, you can kind of solidify that. Again, I don't think that either one of us are wrong. I think it's just different points of view and maybe differently how we approach clients.
It helps explain why some people's weights maybe seem like they're more tightly regulated than others. I mean, we all know somebody who can eat anything and they just stay the same weight, while others have an extra beer on the weekend and they gain weight. The former likely has a very narrow set point range, so their body works harder to keep them within that range, while the latter may have a wider range, meaning their weight is more likely to fluctuate to a greater degree. Based on these theories, when we restrict calories and we lose weight below the lower intervention threshold, aka the set point range, a few major energy out mechanisms kick in to bring the body back to homeostasis. Unfortunately, it would appear that this is not a precise science, as metabolism, aka energy out or energy expenditure, may decline more than what you would expect for the change in body weight, likely as a survival mechanism to safeguard against body and fat mass loss.
Exactly. This is such a fantastic explanation. We're very much in line. It's just the minutia that we kind of differ, I'm assuming, with how we approach clients. But so far, everything that she says is exactly in line with what I teach and what I preach about set point theory, that your body will fight to keep you at a certain weight as a means to protect you, because guess what? We are the exact same beings that we were as cavemen, and if we did not eat for long periods of time, back then, our bodies had to evolutionarily develop a mechanism to protect us from just withering away into nothing instantly, with the influx or lack of food depending. So we had to sort of be adjustable in that way. And guess what? We have the exact same bodies we did as cavemen, but what's different? Our environment. Nothing else is different physiologically. We have not evolved since then. It's very interesting that we're so in line. I'm actually kind of a little bit surprised, but in a great way.
We saw the survival mechanism play out in the popular weight loss reality TV show, The Biggest Losers. Results from a 6-year follow-up study on 14 contestants from the show showed that not only did contestants regain the weight that they lost in a lot of cases, but some contestants gained even more weight than what they weighed prior to participating on the show. These results suggest that metabolic adaptations, or a slow metabolism, is actually a defense mechanism that acts in proportion to weight loss.
Okay, so this is so far, we're a third of the way through. She hasn't even started discussing reverse dieting or all in yet. But the science discussed is fabulous and 100% sound, recommended. Go watch this video. She explains it so well. I phrase things with my clients a little bit more colloquially, a little bit more casually, because I feel like if you give too much science, sometimes it kind of goes in one ear and out the other and it doesn't get absorbed. People's brains melt like the end of Indiana Jones. And so I like to phrase it as your body has a relationship with you, and with chronic dieting, rude. When your body begins to lack trust because you lost so much weight too quickly, it's going to fight tooth and nail. She kind of explains this in the video, to get you back to that original weight because it thinks that you're in a famine. And then that will deregulate hormones. It'll make it harder for you to lose weight in the future. A more slow and steady wins the race approach avoids this in the first place. But I'm still curious about what she's going to talk about reverse dieting and all in, because so far she hasn't brought that up yet. But I understand that she needs to sort of explain all of this ahead of time. It's just a little lengthy.
Metabolism be restored back to normal homeostasis after a period of restriction? Well, two of the most common ways to restore metabolism are through reverse dieting and the all-in approach. First, let's talk about reverse dieting. So reverse dieting is exactly as it sounds and is often called the diet after the diet. It's a way of eating that is usually performed after a diet or a period of restriction. This entails progressively increasing calories over a certain period of time to boost up resting metabolic rate back to its original rate. The truth is that there isn't a lot of peer-reviewed research on reverse dieting. I mean, this is a method
There's a lot of anecdotal research though.
Competition, sports nutrition area, and success is largely anecdotal.
In lieu of, as I just said, it's a lot of anecdotal research that shows that people, and I have countless clients, mind you, who experience the benefits of reverse dieting. And in theory, you could say, yeah, couldn't I just bring myself back up to maintenance? You could, but there's a lot more mental stress that comes with that, and slowly increasing calories over time does better for people who tend to be in the mental position to have become overweight in the first place. A lot of this is a mental battle, and if you slowly increase calories over time, it's an adjustment that you don't really notice versus all of a sudden you're eating a lot more food, and that can be triggering for a lot of people and then result in eating even more than they're supposed to, which then results in gaining their weight back. So while there's not a lot of maybe scientific evidence, it's because what happens in your brain is not necessarily quantifiable. What happens in your heart isn't necessarily quantifiable. Anecdotal is what we can really go off of, and then the success from people who've done it after the fact is what we can go off of. Sorry, that's how I feel.
a client attempting reverse dieting would increase their calories by about 50 to 100 calories per week.
Yes.
They would do this until a caloric goal, weight goal, or a perceived set point was reached.
Yes.
There can be a lot of experimentation involved in this, so it is best to do this with the guidance of a dietitian.
Yes.
Because the progression is so slow and calculated, there is a lower risk of overshooting the desired weight.
Exactly.
However, some people can tolerate a greater amount of calories outside of this range, while others need to be more conservative. And this is why, again, it is very important to work with a professional on your reverse dieting journey. Now, the all-in approach is a process created by Dr. Nicola Rinaldi, which was informed by previous treatment methods used in eating disorder recovery. It was originally developed to restore hormonal function quickly in order to reverse symptoms of hypothalamic amenorrhea, such as menstrual irregularity, extreme hunger, lack of libido, infertility, and temperature sensitivity. The all-in approach is now often used to restore metabolic function, albeit faster than reverse dieting. What?
Faster than reverse dieting? Really? I've helped people through reverse dieting regulate their periods in 5 weeks. I don't know about you, but we saw Stephanie Buttermore. It took her like 5 months to start regulating her ghrelin and leptin response. So you're trying to tell me that all-in is faster than reverse dieting? I don't buy it. Maybe it's because my clients never go below 1,300 calories. So maybe if you're coming with somebody who is eating 500 calories a day and then you're using the reverse dieting approach of 50 calories per week, but they're not doing reverse dieting. They're doing all in. So if they're allowed to eat as much as they want, she's saying it's going to take longer to do reverse dieting. That's not what I've seen anecdotally.
Now, you might recall my videos on Stephanie Buttermore's all-in journey. Stephanie had a regular cycle, so she wasn't necessarily trying to use all-in for menstrual regularity as it was originally intended. She was using all-in to help her reset some of the side effects of her dieting past.
She had a regular cycle because she was on the pill. She didn't have a regular cycle before that. I don't believe that she was put on the pill for that reason, but I remember her saying she was on the pill and that's why she was regular. So
how do you go all in? Now, in Dr. Rinaldi's book, No Period Now What, she suggests that recovery involves 3 main pillars, which she encourages people to stick to for a minimum of 6 months to see a complete recovery. These requirements include A, following her meal plan daily, which aims for a minimum of 2,500 calories a day without a maximum and allowing yourself to eat to full satiety. 2, cutting out all high-intensity exercise. And 3, reducing stress and making time to relax. It's not uncommon for people who have come off of a period of intense restriction to experience what we call extreme hunger and therefore need a lot of calories to recover. Since the body is operating at a lower metabolic rate while consuming a suboptimal amount of calories, once you jump up to the 2,500 calorie minimum, it's expected that you will gain weight and fat. The weight gain may therefore be just a little bit, or it could be a lot. Essentially, some people who follow the all-in approach find that they may initially gain extra weight, but that as their metabolism adjusts, this weight kind of resettles back down slightly and plateaus.
That's what happened to Stephanie. She's about 20 pounds lower now than she was at the height of her all-in journey. Looking fab, by the way. Not that that's what it's about, but it needs to be said. The girl looks good.
So what are the benefits and disadvantages of reverse dieting versus all-in? Well, evidence on reverse dieting and its alleged benefits is admittedly lacking. But experts who do use this strategy with their clients find that the slow, stepwise method to increasing caloric intake allows for gradual metabolic adaptation and reduces the risk of gaining excess fat and weight while preserving lean muscle mass. This is largely based on anecdotal evidence and not from actual research studies. The downside is that reverse dieting, like any dieting, may not be appropriate for those struggling with disordered eating, which is actually not uncommon for people coming from an extreme diet or pattern of restriction. Carefully counting calories with a goal of metabolic restoration with minimal weight gain can further perpetuate disordered eating and will not help an individual into a more flexible, healthy relationship with food and their body.
I agree. I don't think that foods are good nor bad. I think that it's either a food serves your goal or it doesn't. I implement reverse dieting with people who have lost massive amounts of weight, who are overweight. I don't implement reverse dieting with people who are coming to me with eating disorders. That's not my specialty. That's not what I claim to help people with. That's probably more down Abby's line of work, Dr. Rinaldi's line of work. I work with people who cannot historically keep the weight off. And reverse dieting is a tip and a trick and a system that I use within my Diet Destroyer program to basically put the finishing touch on the presence that is their new body without fear of gaining their weight back. If you want to know a little bit more about it, you can watch my video on reverse dieting, but even more importantly, I really, again, for the 100th time, recommend watching the free training that's down below.
There is also a concern that because the goal of reverse dieting is to slowly bump up caloric intake without risking weight or fat gain, an individual may never actually ever reach their body's true set point weight. Instead, they may continue to be fueling their body at a suboptimal level for their unique needs, but stopping when their goal weight or desired weight is threatened by a further caloric increase. The other concern is that reverse dieting does not achieve metabolic restoration very quickly. So for those who are suffering with the physiological health implications of metabolic damage like hypothalamic amenorrhea, infertility, thyroid dysfunction, or other hormonal irregularities, they may not achieve the timely recovery that they really truly need.
That's all relative to how far you push your reverse diet. I've helped people get pregnant who couldn't get pregnant after 2 years of trying within 6 weeks. Another one of my clients got pregnant in 4 weeks. This just happened this summer. I've helped people get off of hormone medication, blood pressure medication, all sorts of things, reverse dieting. So just to put a blanket label that it might not help means that either you didn't do it properly or you weren't doing it with the guidance of a certified or licensed professional. So I feel like that's a little bit of an unfair comparison, but
in contrast, the all-in approach is arguably the most efficient way to restore hormonal regulation. And by default, of course,
what determines efficiency? Like I just said, I helped somebody regulate their period in 6 weeks. Are you telling me in 6 weeks of eating all that you possibly want to eat, that's going to happen with all in? It didn't with Stephanie. I don't know a lot of people where it happened that quickly for them. It usually happens over the course of 6 months to a year. Again, I'm not putting a blanket statement on it, but I feel like doing this comparison isn't necessarily fair. Maybe she hasn't experienced this anecdotally herself. Maybe she's talking specifically with people who are suffering from eating disorders, but reverse dieting isn't just meant for people with eating disorders. Obviously, I have tons of clients who've done it with me, and it's simply about securing a set point, which again, I feel like is an adjustable and manipulatable number. Otherwise, why would people who were set at a stuck weight of 200 pounds and now at 125 pounds, they can eat more freely? It's because they established a new set point. It is possible to establish a new set point. Again, it might just be a difference of opinion, but that's my experience with clients and my experience personally. If you want to follow my whole weight loss journey, I'll have that video above as well.
Restriction. This will mean improvements in everything from sleep, menstrual cycle, thyroid, hunger and fullness cues, etc. It's also
that can happen with reverse dieting
that can help you reach your body's natural set point while relearning, often for the first time in a really long time, how to listen to your body's true hunger and fullness cues.
Again, this sounds like it's really just for people with eating disorders or chronic undereating. She's not really applying it to any other situation other than that.
In my professional opinion, I consider the all-in approach to be true recovery from restriction. While reverse dieting can offer some significant health benefits, it may not allow for full healing to occur, both psychologically and in some cases physically. In other words, all-in is exactly what it sounds like when it comes to refueling your body, while reverse dieting may not be going all the way, but some of the way at a much slower pace. It could get you all the way, but it also could not. So how do you know if you should go all in or reverse diet to restore metabolism? Well, I would argue that a reverse diet may not be suitable for anybody with a past or present history of disordered eating who really should be focusing on regaining body trust, not on another weight-driven diet, even if it is one that involves adding calories to the diet.
I agree. I use reverse dieting for people who are trying to really change their body composition, and mostly coming from people trying to lose fat, not from people who are disordered eating, anorexic, chronic undereaters. Totally different thing, in which case, yes, I agree, all-in was probably better for those people. No question. The rest of the video is really just her talking about other things you can do to help your metabolism, such as reducing exercise as a means of reducing cortisol. You can reduce cortisol in a lot of ways, just trying to be less stressed, adding in meditation into your routine. You don't have to eliminate exercise altogether, but excessive exercise, she says, is to be avoided, which I agree with. A lot of people get endorphins, which then lowers stress, which then lowers cortisol from exercise. So I don't necessarily think that just getting rid of exercise is a way to reset your metabolism. That doesn't make a lot of sense, right? But I do agree with her that excessive, chronic, compulsive exercise should be avoided totally. Also, she talks about sleep, which does affect your hormone balance in general also. And so many times people don't see changes on the scale, and I ask if they're sleeping well, and all of a sudden when they get the required amount of sleep, a good 8 to 9 hours, which I understand is not always possible, but when they do get it, they see much better body response. So I do agree with her on that. She does say it's arguably less effective to reverse diet, which I disagree with. And she says that all in is faster, which again, I disagree with. But she says that all in is really for people who are chronic undereaters. And again, I've already agreed with that 100%. My use of reverse dieting is really for people who are at the end of a weight loss period, at the end of a cut of calories, and then a lot of people think that they have to just maintain that low number, otherwise they're going to gain their weight back, and that is just not true. Again, you can watch my YouTube video about reverse dieting if you want to check that out and explain it, or if you want a more in-depth full training on how you can implement reverse dieting in your own weight loss journey, go ahead and watch that free training down below. How many times did I say that? If I could get, $1 for every time I said that. What, $5? That does it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. I think all in and that whole journey and how it's become so popular over the last year or so is really, really interesting. And I think it warrants a lot of discussion. I always have the biggest thumbs downs on these videos, but a lot of you watch and comment, and I think that the discussion is what's important. So if I have to provoke some of you, then I will. I really am an advocate for reverse dieting in the right context. So if you have any questions about it, let's talk about it in the comments below. Like and subscribe to this video if you like things like this. It really helps me know what kind of content you're into and looking for. And that's it. I'll see you next time. Bye.